Okay, we're back. This is chapter 7, part 3. These are some review from the last video, which was chapter 7, part 2. Uh, Question number 10 says, explain the history of campaign finance laws from Buckley versus Valeo decision to McCain-Feingold Act to Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision. So remember with uh, this is all about trying to get the money out of politics, dark money too. And it goes back to the spoil system. With the spoil system, ever since Andrew Jackson, every person in a presidential administration was picked because he helped the candidate get into power. And what that created was this expectation that you got your job because Andrew Jackson put you there, so now you need to contribute to Jackson. Part of your paycheck needs to go to Andrew Jackson's campaign of reelection. And so that was a lot of money in politics. And we start to see the first attempts in the 1970s to get that money out. And then by McCain-Feingold decision, they've put a limit on it. And then the Supreme Court says you can't tell corporations that they can't, uh, that they can't donate because it's their free speech right. And so this is what has given us the PACs versus the super PACs. So prior to any kind of legislation, these were PACs. Now super PACs, it's just there's no limit to how much that they can spend. So this is number 10 on your DE questions. And what are political action committees and super PACs? They're organizations created to raise and spend money to influence and contribute to the candidate's campaign. After Citizens United, though, there's no limits on the contributions. So the difference is there were limits from this 1970 laws and McCain-Feingold, and now there are no limits. What's the difference between a closed primary, open primary, and a caucus? The closed primary, you, like in Maryland, a Democrat can't vote in a Republican primary, and a Republican can't vote in a Democratic primary, or an independent can't vote in that. In an open primary, like the state of Virginia has, anybody can vote in any primary. So I'm a Republican, I can go vote in the Democratic primary. A caucus, 5 states have them. A caucus system is where I'm not just going in to choose someone for a specific party. It's like an all-day event. I'm going in and I'm sent to a room of the candidate of my choice. If that candidate doesn't poll at a certain amount, then they are going to be wooed over to another candidate, and you're going to hear speeches, you're going to hear pitches and all kinds of things, and it's an all-day event. It's more for the committed party member. Number 12, what's the party convention? How has its significance changed throughout history? The party convention used to be where you chose the candidates of the two parties, but now we use the primary system, or some states 5 use the caucus system. So now the party convention is more just a formality. But what is ironed out there is the planks, the different specific issues of what that party is going to stand for, and all those planks make up the party platform. Um, and that's the big responsibility of the party conventions, is to decide that. Okay, the Electoral College. This is the official way we choose the president. And I know you guys remember this from US history, but we're going to go over it again. So basically, this was a big compromise at the Constitutional Convention about whether they wanted to let the people choose the president, whether they wanted Congress to choose the president, or whether they wanted the states under the federal system to choose the president. And they kind of meshed all those into one big old fat system. So how we officially choose the president is however many representatives and senators your state has is how many electors your state is going to get. So Virginia has 11 members in the House and 2 senators, so we have 13 electors. And so what happens is people will go out and vote, and whoever wins Virginia, 48 of the 50 states have a winner take all system, that person will get all 13 electors. So for example, Hillary Clinton won in 2016 the state of Virginia. You can see this is blue. And what that meant was she got all 13 electors. And so how you secure the Electoral College is basically you get a majority of the electors. There are 538 electors because we have 435 in the House and we have 100 in the Senate, 100 senators, 2 from every state. And then we have 3 for D.C. And that obviously was the 23rd Amendment, 3 electoral votes for the District of Columbia. And so 538, a majority of 538 is 270. So the candidate is not necessarily with the most votes is going to be the president. It's the one with the majority of electors, and that's how we choose. Kind of a convoluted system. People have actually talked about, amending it, getting rid of it. There's a multi cross-section state attempt to try to hand the decision over to the person who gets the most votes. But, we don't even know if that's constitutional or not, so that's in the works. But the bottom line is you have 538 electors, and Maine and Nebraska are the only two that don't have a winner-take-all system. They actually divide their state up, like here's Maine, and basically in District 1, Clinton won, and in District 2, Trump won. This is more rural, this is more urban. And then the at-large would have been for the third elector. And basically, out of all of these votes, Clinton got more, so she got that third elector seat. Instead of getting all 3, Clinton only got 2, even though she won more votes in Maine. And Nebraska does something like that. They're the only 2 states out of all 50 that don't do a winner-take-all system. But basically, that's the Electoral College. If every state voted like Maine and Nebraska, Trump would have lost the presidential election by about 16 electoral votes. But that's not how the Constitution works. So what states could do if they don't like the Electoral College winner-take-all system is they could do like Maine and Nebraska, and they could get rid of that. And states that have recently considered that are these states that are outlined. They're actually talking about that. And these are the major dates for the election process. So November 8th is your election day. And then the 19th of December is the meeting of the 538 electors. And then December 28th was the deadline for the receipt of the electoral vote. And then they actually officially counted it in Congress. And that was the official, so that before the inauguration, it was official that, Donald Trump won the Electoral College. Number 14 says, what are the midterm elections? They call them midterm because they're actually occurring in the middle of a presidential term. And so Donald Trump was chosen in 2016, and he's not even on the ballot in 2018. It's the middle of his term because his presidency isn't up until 2020. And so that is basically the midterm election. It comes in the middle of the president's term. And traditionally, midterm elections do not typically go well for the party of the president in office at the time. It usually has adverse reaction to it. And so Obama faced this, Trump faced this, and what happens is they turn out that party and put in the other party usually. Number 14 also asks you what's the coattail effect. It refers to a boost that the candidate at the top of the ticket is going to give you. So, for example, if you have a candidate that's really, really popular, the other candidates on the down ticket, like whoever's running in the House and whoever's running maybe in the Senate, and this obviously doesn't have to happen in midterm elections. It can happen in any election. Is going to, if the candidate is popular, the down ticket members in the House and the Senate races are usually going to do well too. Okay. And so this refers to a boost the candidate at the top of the ticket is going to give to the people who are running on the down ticket. And so that's because people tend to vote all Republican or they tend to vote all Democrat. And so this was evidence of the coattail effect that Donald Trump had. And this coattail effect could have been negative in 2018, but it was positive in 2016. There was a lot of candidates who were running for the House or running for the Senate seat who won just because they had an R next to their name, because people wanted Trump and then they wanted him to have, a majority party in Congress. Okay, primary and general elections. In a primary, candidates tend to reach out to the party base. Republicans tend to move to the right in the primaries. Democrats tend to move to the left. Basically, what happens in the general election is they have to kind of tack to the center. And this is so that they can pick up those members of that party base. Focus on the individual because the candidates are competing against candidates from the same party. So if you've got all Democrats running in the primaries, what you tend to see is more for universal health care, more for, pro-gun control issues. But when then they start to run against the party, the candidate from the other party, they're going to have to tack to the center and on issues, and they're going to come back to the middle. And that's pretty much what happens in the general election. So, you might have Joe Biden running against Bernie right now, and he might be talking about bolstering Obamacare and maybe even universal health care plan to try to pull up some Bernie supporters. But when he's head to head against Donald Trump, because it looks like he's going to be the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party, then he's going to have to tack to the center more on some issues. And that's what tends to happen in the general election. They are very expensive, and the use of technology, as you already obviously know from Bloomberg and such, television ads are very expensive. Just 1 minute of advertisement in the Super Bowl was, just a fortune. Candidates often rely also on attack ads, and that is why it's important that you watch that video. It's on my teacher page, video 60 years of attack ads, so that you can see that this isn't just some new phenomenon. These attack ads have been going on for history. So you have some election terminology that you need to know here. Straight ticket voting is when you refer to a voter casting a vote for all the candidates of the same party. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to vote for all the Republicans. And so Donald Trump, and then whoever is running in the House from the Republican Party, I might not even know his name, whoever is running for the Senate seat, if there's a Senate candidate up. It doesn't matter what his name is, as long as he is a Republican, I'm going to vote for him. That's what we call straight ticket voting. Retrospective voting is referring to the voter looking at his past actions. How did he vote on Obamacare? How did he vote on gun control? To determine how I think he might govern in the future. And pocketbook voting, I'm focused as a voter on who's going to raise my taxes. If I don't want to be financially impacted with really high taxes, I might agree everybody deserves health care, but I know that that's going to mean me basically having to pay higher taxes. I'm not voting for Bernie because that's not a pocketbook issue, and I know I'm going to have to pay higher taxes. Prospective voting is when the voter, I have to anticipate how that candidate will govern. So I'm looking at, Bernie or Biden or Trump, how I think he will make decisions and anticipate how I think they're going to govern in the future. So that's more, looking to the future and what issues we have in the future that they're going to have to deal with. And obviously, we're going to have a down economy, so I might be more involved in a prospective voting to see who I think could actually help dig us out of this, economic decline that might happen after this pandemic. Okay, so you do need to know all that election terminology. Direct democracy characteristics. We are not a direct democracy, we're a representative democracy, but we have direct democracy characteristics in our system. So an initiative is where, I like an idea, and so I'm going to propose it with a with a petition, and then if it gets enough signatures on the petition, it can then be put on the ballot. It's a potential law proposed directly by the citizens, comes right from us. And then if it reaches a certain milestone of a certain percentage of signatures, you're going to see it on the ballot, and then all the people of Virginia, are going to vote on it. A referendum, it gives voters a chance to confirm or repeal a legislative decision. So this is the Virginia General Assembly saying, well, we want to do this, but this is really, really bold, and we want to, make sure that the voters are okay with this. So the legislature will pass it, and then they want a chance to let the people confirm their legislative decision. So, like maybe legalization of marijuana is passed by this democratically controlled Virginia General Assembly, but just to confirm it, they're going to put it on a referendum on the ballot so that we as a people can decide. And basically, that if it more people say yes to it, then it becomes law. If more people say no to it, then it doesn't. Even though the legislature had already passed it. And then recall. Virginia doesn't have recall. Some states do, and you can see recall. So the states that have blue, the states that have both, the initiative, neither. Recall is where you have a candidate who said, I'm going to do da 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 da. And then they get in there and they don't do da 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 da. So what you can do is you can start a petition to recall their butt before their term expires. And they actually have to stand for election before their term is up. And that's how Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California. There was a recall of Gary Davis, and bottom line was he got booted out, and Arnold Schwarzenegger got booted in because he had promised a bunch of stuff that he was never able to deliver on, and the people basically had enough votes against him to recall his butt before his term expired, and then that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger won the election. And so Virginia uses several types of direct election um, uh, characteristics: initiative, referendum, recall, elections held to withdraw a person from office. Virginia, I do not think has this, so I need to check on this. But basically, initiative and referendum, Virginia does have. Okay, and then these are some review on what we just went over. And that would be it. And so for these reviews, I will come back to go over these. But that's it for chapter 7. And so good luck. If you need anything, hit me up on Remind or email. But basically, stay safe and definitely social distance, right? Take care.